Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. The U.S. Forest Service wants to restore oak and hickory forest in southern Indiana, but the projects are being met with resistance.
They're going out of their way to do the projects in a way that are going to cause major impacts.
Opponents of the projects have found an ally in Governor Mike Braun, who owns thousands of acres of timberland in the area. The Huntington family donated a large tract of land to the county to be used as a nature preserve, but that means some will have to relocate.
They have no inkling of what it takes to live out here and what all we've done to this place since we've been here, and they don't really give a damn.
The 409-acre Monroe County Nature Preserve is expected to open in 2027. And we look at the state's preliminary discussions about redrawing its U.S. House district map. We'll have these stories and more right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, half dozen Indiana House Democrats met with their Texas colleagues Wednesday in Chicago to oppose mid-cycle redistricting efforts in their state. It all comes after President Donald Trump asked the Texas state legislature to redraw its U.S. House maps in an effort to pick up 5 Republican seats in next year's midterm elections. California plans to redraw its map to gain House seats for the Democrats to counter Texas' move. Now, Indiana is having its own internal debates about redistricting its House map. For more on what's going on at the State House, we're joined by Indiana Capitol Chronicle Editor-in-Chief Nikki Kelly. Welcome to the program, Nikki.
Thanks for having me.
So Vice President J.D. Vance came to Indianapolis to encourage Indiana Republicans to redraw the state map. What's been their reaction?
Well, so far we're hearing from, I think we're up to about 10 now, lawmakers, Republican lawmakers who are saying, no, I don't want anything to do with this. Don't feel like we need a special session. Our maps are great. We said they were great 5 years ago. They're still great. So, I think a lot more people are obviously holding their opinion back, but a few are definitely reaching out and saying, making sure they're on the record about it. And now we're starting to see pressure coming from outstate on these lawmakers.
Now, is it surprising that so many Republicans have come out against redistricting, which is what the president wants?
I think it's a little bit surprising, especially given the power that Donald Trump has when he decides to go against someone, especially an incumbent who would need to be reelected in the future. Obviously, the leaders, the ones who are going to make the decision about calling the session, they have still remained very quiet. And so I know that there's a lot of behind the scenes discussion going on. And now we learned today that all House Republicans House and Senate Republicans were invited to the White House August 26th. To be clear, this meeting was previously scheduled before J.D. Vance came here to Indiana, but redistricting is obviously going to be a hot topic.
Yeah, and we saw Democrats in the state supporting their counterparts from Texas. What are they saying about redistricting in the state?
Yeah, Democrats are pretty solidly a no, obviously. We have a 7-2 map for Congress here in Indiana, and while some Republicans think they can eke out one, maybe both of those Democrat seats. I think more Republicans think it has inherent risks and, shouldn't really be a thing they pursue.
So redistricting is usually done after each 10-year census. We're only halfway through that cycle. Is there precedence for mid-cycle redistricting?
I was looking back through a history of the General Assembly. I can't say it's never happened before. Looking back in the 1800s and early 1900s, it sometimes didn't happen. Like they were on different cycles, every 3 years at one point, every 5 years. But once we kind of got into the every decade, it seems like that's where it has stayed. That's when they shall do it. They have to do it by the Indiana Constitution. Now, occasionally, in the past here and elsewhere, they haven't been able to agree on them. So maybe it would push past that first year, but I've not seen, no one has provided me an example of a mid-district recycling like this, or mid-decade redistricting like this.
Nikki, thank you so much. We appreciate your reporting on this.
No problem, thanks.
More than 400 acres of land will be available, turned into a nature preserve on the east side of Bloomington off State Road 446, thanks to a donation from the estate of Nancy Huntington, who died in 2023. But as Benta Boutier reports, it comes at an expense for two families, one of whom has rented a house on the property for more than 10 years and will have to move.
A short walk into the woods near his house, Dale Hollers kneels on the ground to clear weeds and add a fresh coat of paint to a memorial he and his wife Margaret set up for their grandson Braden, who died in a four-wheeling accident 14 years ago.
I just praying to God for him to make it and take me, but it crushed his little heart. And they come there and told him he had passed. That still bothers me today.
It's one of the most painful memories they've lived through during more than 20 years since they moved in. Dale says they sunk time and money into clearing the yard and fixing it up when he and Margaret started leasing there.
It didn't even have a shower in it or anything.
Now the Hollers need to find a new place to live by October. The property's owner, Nancy Huntington, died in 2023 and made the land a revocable trust that would go to the county for recreational use. Until late 2024, the county was trying to determine what recreational use in Huntington's will meant and ways to move forward. The Hollers say the county and property management hadn't been clear about the possibility they would have to leave.
Our understanding that the state was going to get it, after she died, the state was going to inherit the property and make an animal habitat place out of it, but we could still stay here,
The county's attorney says that was proposed, but no promises were made. The court order interpreting use for the land says the county can lease to the Hollers for up to 2 years. But the county determined the Hollers have to leave sooner to start prepping the land for recreational use, according to the county attorney Justin Roddy. During a visit to the property on May 30th, he told the Hollers informally there was a strong possibility they would have to move. The property officially came into the county's possession in June. The next month, the Hollers received a letter saying they had to move by October. Dale says they've been looking, but finding a new place is difficult because most rents are too expensive. He wishes the county would give them another year to look.
They have no inkling of what it takes to live out here and what all we've done to this place since we've been here, and they don't really give a damn, to be honest with you.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Benta Boutier.
Guided tours of the future Monroe County Nature Preserve are planned to begin next year, with open trails expected to be completed in 2027. Well, we're joined now by Elise Perry for more headlines from around the state. Hi, Elise.
Hi, Joe. The passing rate on Indiana's third grade reading exam rebounded this year to the highest it's been since before the pandemic. The statewide average jumped nearly 5 percentage points, the largest increase for the history of the test. Indiana's Secretary of Education says the gains show the state's focus on elementary literacy skills is paying off.
Celebrate the moment. And tomorrow we get up and keep our foot on this gas pedal, because it was stated the toughest part is not just maintaining, it's continuing to improve.
More than 87% of Indiana third graders passed the reading test. That's texts as a new state law tightens a requirement for schools to hold back students who have not passed the exam. Indiana University is formally reprimanding a professor for violating the state's intellectual diversity law. An anonymous person reported Professor Ben Robinson to IU last November for defying that law. College of Arts and Sciences Dean Rick Van Kooten has now warned Robinson for discussing Israel, sharing personal opinions, and criticizing the university during class.
What I want to emphasize about it is that it is a show trial. It is not about me in the last instance. It is about chilling other faculty.
Professors at public colleges and universities are required to promote free speech in the classroom. It also mandates that they teach, quote, intellectually diverse ideas. The city of Terre Haute is now operating under a modified hiring freeze. It won't affect public safety, transit, and seasonal positions, but the city has consolidated 6 departments after staff retired.
What we do understand is at the local level, we're not making these state decisions, we're not making these federal decisions, but what we are going to do is play with the cards that we've been dealt.
Sackbun says the reason for the hiring freeze stems from the loss of revenue due to the state's new property tax bill. He says the city is trying to grow itself out of the problem by increasing housing to increase the property tax base. 40% of Hoosier high schoolers are skipping the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. It's a form that unlocks federal, state, and institutional financial aid to attend college. A report from the National College Attainment Network shows students falsely assume they will get nothing, even those from low-income families.
The number one thing we hear all the time is, I'm not going to get anything, and I'm not filing, and most often that's incorrect.
Wozniak says even wealthier students usually qualify for some kind of aid if they complete it. He encourages all students to take a few minutes to fill out the form. A new boutique hotel will open on Kirkwood Avenue in the former site of the People's State Bank in the next month. The posh boutique hotel at the corner of Washington Street and Kirkwood Avenue will feature 45 rooms and several amenities, including a sauna and the Signetti Club Room. Owner Elliot Lewis says the hotel would have been open by now had it not been for the tariffs President Trump implemented earlier this year.
The biggest setback is just in revenue. We would have been open for all the orientation, for parent-student, for move-in, and for the first few games for IU football.
A second Gables Bagels location will open in the first floor of the hotel. It will provide complimentary breakfast for hotel guests. Owner Ed Schwartzman says there was a need for a second Gables Bagels location downtown.
They love the design, but it's a little shoebox. I mean, this one with the high ceilings and the fancy lights. It's definitely a step up, a big step up in class, but same great food.
The new Gables Bagels should be open by August 21st, and the hotel is expected to open by September 15th. Exhibit Columbus, a modern architectural showcase put on every 2 years, returns this weekend. Aubrey Wright got a sneak peek of some of the exhibits and has more on this year's theme.
Exhibit Columbus organizers are preparing to showcase 13 projects and the city itself.
You're going to see a town that's willing to be curious, willing to ask what's next, and willing to explore.
This year's theme, Yes and, is inspired by improv theater. The projects are encouraging collaboration and building upon the legacy of the city.
I'm excited to take you next to the Crump Theater, one of Indiana's oldest and most historic theaters that needs some love.
An installation at the historic Crump Theater is highlighting layers and layers of transformations.
There was a fire in 1978 that burned down the buildings that used to be where we're standing now. It's letting people see that for the first time in 50 years or so.
Along with revamping a forgotten opera box inside, Vince recreated a 1920s facade that honors people crucial to the building's preservation.
There's 130 silhouettes of people from Columbus who have had some role or some part in helping save the building from demolition.
Though architecture lovers from all over the world come to Columbus, he says the project is for locals, people who see the Crump every day.
I'm trying to remind people that that the built environment is very much a living and breathing thing, and it changes all the time, and that's a good thing.
12 other projects are placed around the city.
I hope that people around the state around the country come look and say what's next for their town and how can they positively work together as a community to make it better for everyone.
Exhibit Columbus is planning free and family-friendly events Friday night and all day Saturday.
We have food trucks, we have beverage stations, a live band, Peyton Womack from Indianapolis. It's going to be a great time.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
And Joe, the exhibits will be on display through November 30th.
It's really cool. They're outside. You can just walk up and kind of be part of the exhibits. Cool stuff. Thank you. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. 2 planned projects by the U.S. Forest Service in southern Indiana are being met with resistance, including from Governor Mike Braun. And a new art exhibit challenges traditional views of patriotism and what it means to be an American. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Hello, I'm Todd Gould, Senior Producer Director at WTIU. I've personally devoted nearly 40 years of my life producing PBS arts and documentary films about important stories from Indiana, the arts, history, and people that make Hoosiers great. Despite government cutbacks, we will never stop telling Indiana stories, your stories. Please donate now to keep this station strong. Become a sustaining monthly member at WTIU.org.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Forest Service conservation projects in Hoosier National Forest often pit the agency's goals against the wishes of locals. One of the largest timberland owners in the region, Indiana Governor Mike Braun, is pressuring the agency to stop 2 planned projects, Buffalo Springs and Houston South. Ethan Sandwise has his story.
Forester Perry Seitzinger took us to a deep part of the forest. Here, sunlight reaches the ground. Around us, the woods are obscured in shadow. 3 years ago, this area was clear-cut by the Forest Service.
They removed all the overstory and let the natural seed bank take off and regenerate into hardwood trees.
The Forest Service wants to restore the oak and hickory forests that once covered Indiana before the settlers clear-cut the state. It's targeting 2 areas, the Houston South Project and the Buffalo Springs Project. To do so, the Forest Service uses a combination of low-intensity prescribed fire burns and cutting down some trees. That creates conditions benefiting oak and hickory over other trees.
I must admit, when this first happens, it is not aesthetically pleasing whatsoever. And that elicits an emotional response in people. It's important to know the science behind it and why we're doing what we do.
The Forest Service did not grant an interview, but Seitzinger explained its process.
If we don't have any forest management, we will not have our forests as we know them because of invasive species and changes in climate and those sorts of things. So a passive approach to managing our forests is no longer a valid option.
Forest Service ecologists say taking no action would continue the trend toward shadyo forests dominated by maple and beech.
The Forest Service projects I've reviewed and seen, they're using all of that information to make these decisions, and I think it's all extremely well founded, in my opinion.
An oak hickory forest without a dense canopy of other trees creates a habitat for turkey and songbirds that prefer open forests. It also allows a variety of sunlight-dependent wildflowers to flourish. Those seeds can lie dormant for decades, but without the right conditions, they can die.
The clock's going to run out on being able to bring these species out of the seed bank that are there. And so I think they're probably on those types of sites trying to maximize the site potential.
But restoring an ecosystem is messy. Burns and cuts come at the short-term expense of other species, and they're off-putting for some who live by and enjoy these forests.
There's trees and brooks and hills, and it's just nature and good friends to ride with until you get to where they've clear-cut timber out, and then it's an ugly mess.
The Indiana Forest Alliance and its giant plywood bison are a frequent presence at protests against the Buffalo Springs and Houston South projects. Its members advocate for a hands-off approach, what ecologists sometimes call preservation, versus involved management or conservation.
Now that land has slowly healed, and so the natural, much more diverse forest is coming back. And we think that they should manage the Hoosier National Forest to let that natural transition occur.
Stant has fought for the forest for nearly 50 years since he helped establish the Charles Dean Wilderness, but his organization is often at odds with the government service established to protect it.
They're going out of their way to do the projects in a way that are going to cause major impacts. And all you have to do is look at the 3 square miles they just burned and all the hazard trees they cut down to know they're doing that.
The Forest Alliance, Monroe County commissioners, and other environmentalist groups have sued to block one of the 2 projects, Houston South near Lake Monroe. But they also have what might seem like an unlikely political ally, Indiana's Republican governor, Mike Braun. He's written 2 letters to the Forest Service, a federal agency, asking it to end the projects, citing local opposition and saying it threatens the forest's, quote, recreational and ecological value. He also wrote a letter of support to opposition groups. Despite being a lifelong Democrat, Stant and his wife donated $66,000 to Braun's bid for governor.
I was glad to see him win the primary resoundingly, and quite frankly, he has a vision about the public lands that I don't think the Democrats had even thought about yet. So I was glad to support him as governor.
Besides his love of outdoor recreation, the Indiana governor is one of the largest timberland owners in the state, with thousands of acres near Forest Service projects, collectively worth tens of millions of dollars. Wood harvested on his land enters the same market as timber sold by the Forest Service. As a state legislator, Braun attempted to limit logging in state forests, while successfully cutting taxes and regulations on private timber. The governor's office did not respond for an interview.
I don't think he has a conflict of interest. I know he's been accused of that because he owns private woodlands. He doesn't want the government competing. I don't think the government selling logs hurts him at all from an economic standpoint.
But Braun, a Jasper native, is in the same camp as many in the region he was raised. Hunters, hikers, and horseback riders use the forest, and many don't want to see it change. When it comes to passive versus active management, Stambaugh says that what seems right can be immensely personal.
No one's right there, right? Like it's your kind of philosophy, and in some cases, it's even like comes down to environmental ethics, like what's right and wrong.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Ethan Sandweiss.
A map of the Buffalo Springs and Houston South projects, along with the land owned by the governor, is available on our website, WTIUnews.org. A new art exhibit at the Backspace Gallery challenges traditional notions of patriotism and encourages people to think about America differently. Isabella Vesperini spoke with the photographer behind the exhibit to learn more.
Surrealist photographer and Indiana University graduate Catherine Kors-Rossman has been collecting artifacts for the exhibit National Anthem, Punk Patriotism for about 10 years. Objects include vintage bicentennial dresses from 1976, signs, and dolls.
I realized the care that people put into this patriotic celebration and how much America has changed since then.
Rossman also photographed individuals from punk and queer communities in patriotic clothing.
I took people who would never wear the flag, who would never feel comfortable wearing it out in public, and I just draped them in the flag. So it was a change in their reality. They weren't necessarily comfortable with it at first, but I wanted them to know that it belonged to them too, and that if they could embody it, it would mean more to all of us.
One of her photographs, Dead Mall Gothic, portrays 2 people in American flag clothing standing in front of the former Macy's entrance at College Mall. It's a commentary on how online consumerism has changed physical spaces.
I've recast that in a different space, asking how our physical spaces matter to us these days when we're very, very online.
The exhibit includes a photo of a black woman dressed as the Statue of Liberty and 3 mannequins dressed in majorette costumes.
She's the pep band leader who's lost her pep. So she's the one leading the marching band, trying to make everyone be enthusiastic, but she's just coming up short because she can't figure out where to go next with America.
Rossman's goal is to show her audience how America has changed and what it can become through a surrealist lens. She also wants to encourage people to become more involved in their communities.
How we celebrate America and the narratives that we embrace is a really big part of that. So I tried to create a space where everyone is welcome, regardless of their political affiliations, and that asks people to join in civil discourse. It's a little silly, it's a little surreal, but it also challenges people's beliefs but in a way that leaves them open.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
The exhibit is located in the Backspace Gallery on the downtown square. It's free to the public, open through the end of August. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger & Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.